Vasudevendra-yogindram natva jnana-pradam gurum mumukṣūṇāṁ hitārthāya tattvabodho-bhidhiyate sarva Vedānta siddhānta gocharam tamagocharam govindam paramanandam satgurum pranatosmyaham. So we had seen a very important verse. Just to refresh a little, we always go back to previous class, so we get connected. 1 week sometimes is a long gap, and memories these days may fail us. So good to refresh what has gone by. We had seen a very important verse, very often quoted verse from Vivekacūḍamani. And this verse had told us, in this verse, Adi Shankaracharya had told us that there are 3 things which are very, very difficult to get in life. And these three things only are acquirable due to the grace of the Lord. Now we understand, how do we understand the grace? So grace is the luck factor in life, a lucky factor in life. This luck factor can, materialize in various ways, actually. Material ways also. Most people in societies, they feel the material luck is more important. But in spiritual life, we feel spiritual luck is more important than all the material luck that you have, because that is the luck that will ultimately free you. So spiritual grace manifests in 3 ways. That is with the human birth. We saw that, it's not so easy to get a human birth. 84 crores of, births you can have. There's a combination you can make, but we have got human birth, very rare, due to the grace of the Lord, which is invoked. Another important thing to add is invoked by our own efforts. Grace is a manifestation of punya phalam. So I have in some lifetime or other, even maybe earlier in this life, done something somewhere in accordance with dharma to invoke this grace, which has manifested punya. So this grace is dependent on me. It is not one Ishvara, one Lord sitting in some place, dishing out, He's impartial. He's not dishing out, oh, I like this person, I will give them grace. I will not give this one grace, let them suffer. That is not the type of divinity that we, Vedic, culture unfolds. It is an impartial order. And every human being, using their free will, has every opportunity to invoke that order. And we invoke it in many ways through prayer, worship. It does not need to be in Sanskrit. Prayer and worship can be in any language, but that invokes grace.
reaching out activities, charitable activities, which can also be done by every human being in any country. That also invokes grace. So this is what our Shastra says is what produces this karma phalam of luck for you. And if somewhere in your life and past life you have prayed for spiritual success, definitely the luck will manifest in the form of these three things. You will get a human birth, and you will get this mumukṣutvaṁ, which is also very important. Mumukṣutvaṁ is the desire for freedom, the desire to be free. We'll see that. As I said, it's a qualification that comes up. But only a human being, you see, that goes together, has the ability to choose to be free. Only in a human birth, you can choose to understand the reality of yourself and of the Lord and of the universe. Only a human being has self-consciousness leading to self-judgment, which leads to self-conclusion. That is the whole, the lot of a human being. An animal does not have it. Animal has, some levels of self-consciousness are there. You can see even if a cow, you have like a bunch of hay in your hand and you stick it out to feed a cow, it will definitely come to you. If you have a stick in your hand, will the cow come to you? No, because it has a level of self-consciousness, survival. I don't want to get beaten up. I'm not going near that person with the stick, but the hay I will go towards because I like the taste of hay. But human being, what is the difference? The human being has self-judgment. Because of self-consciousness, there's self-judgment. We judge ourselves. Success, failure, good, bad, right, wrong. We have this. A cow doesn't have that. A donkey, if you see a donkey, if we stand behind a donkey, if I stand with orange clothes, the donkey is not going to think, this is a Swamini standing behind me, I will not kick. It will kick. Because it is programmed, it doesn't have free choice. Its nature is to kick. So it is self-judgment leading to, and then it won't feel guilty. Oh, why did I kick? It was a Swamini. We have that. Human beings are unique in that. Why is this important? It's important to understand because it is linked to why we want to be free. There is nothing else on this planet that desires freedom apart from human beings. Only the human being has a ability to choose to be free. And most importantly, only a human being can think independently. There is a verse, a subhashitam, which is a wise saying in Sanskrit. It comes in Hitopadesha, which is a text, very nice text, bit like Aesop's fables, where these animals teach. They have these stories of animals in Sanskrit, and there's always a moral at the end of the story. Here, there is a verse there, which says, how can Shastra help a person who doesn't think independently? Even the Shastra cannot bless a person who doesn't think independently. When vision is not there in both eyes, what is the use of holding up a mirror? So this is the saying that is in the Hitopadesha, and that is exactly why this mumukṣutvaṁ, manushyatvaṁ, these become very important. And of course, the last we saw, the being in the guidance or finding the refuge, the support of a wise person who is great, who has been through their life experiences, who can guide in the right direction, who can help you with the spiritual growth, what is good for spiritual life. We saw that as well. So all of these three things are very important to gain grace. And why is it important to gain these three things? Because in spiritual life, knowledge is the very result of the spiritual pursuit. What is it that stands between me and knowledge of myself? Yes, I think I know myself, but the self I know is not what the Upanishads say the self is. The self I know is the small, limited, inadequate, lacking, desiring, seeking self. This is the self we all know. But the Upanishads have a total different vision of the self. So what is it that stands between me and that vision, and assimilation of that vision? It is ignorance alone. The Shastra says that ignorance is the gap that stands between me and myself. Isn't that funny? There is no distance, actually. It is only ignorance that stands. So knowledge is the means. Nothing else opposes knowledge except ignorance. We have to make that clear, because the idea of doing, people also tell me, I've done a lot of Vedanta, I've studied a lot of Vedanta. What should I do now? There is no doing involved here. That has to be clear. If knowledge is the goal and nothing opposes knowledge as ignorance does, then how can action help you achieve that goal? It cannot. Only ignorance opposes. So it is removal of ignorance alone that will help you assimilate knowledge. By doing, you are not going to gain the self. But this is the problem in many ashrams and many places. There's always a sense of, I have to do something to be something. I have to, even in spiritual life, there's so many practices. And we'll see the role of the practices in the next verses. The practices are important, but you have to be very clear. The practices will not help you discover the self, will not make you discover the self. They will help you in another way, but not self-discovery. It is like in a dream, dream example is excellent to see. There is no action in the dream for gaining a result, because waking up is in fact gaining the result. I'll give you a example, because I just got a news flash here about some fires in roads, in Greece. So a dream, you go to sleep and you're dreaming that you're on holiday in Greece and you're trapped in the wildfires. They're happening all around. In the dream, you find it very difficult to breathe. You're panicking and you have all the thoughts of, I'm going to die. How will I survive? In that moment, what happens? You wake up. Knowledge dawns. What is that knowledge? In the waking up, knowledge dawns. Knowledge dawns what? I am here. I am safe. I'm in my bed in London or in US or in India. I am safe here. Did you have to go anywhere and do anything to recognize that? You didn't have to travel to London. You didn't have to travel anywhere to your place to recognize you're safe. This is exactly what knowledge is. When you wake up to this mithya world, this dependent reality, this ephemeral world, it is a long drawn out dream. That is what our acharyas, some acharyas say in Mandukya Karika. Gaudapada Acharya says that this waking state is a long drawn out dream. You take it as reality, but the waking up is in knowledge, or the waking up is when you die, actually. So awaken to find you are safe. Only knowledge was needed to clear the ignorance that you are suffering under the wildfires in Greece. So knowledge is the end. Knowledge is equal to moksha, liberation. And how does one gain this knowledge? That is where Shastra, this pramana, means of knowledge, comes into the picture, because only in the scriptures is there revealed a one ultimate truth of the universe. You can call that many names. It is called Brahman by the scriptures. In the Upanishads, it's referred to as Brahman. Brahman is the limitless consciousness, the cause of the entire Jagat. We give that as Ishvara, the name, which is revealed in the Veda. The entire Jagat, the universe, including my body, mind, senses, is nothing but a part, or nothing but this Brahman, not even a part. It is that Brahman. So I am much more than I take myself to be. I believe myself to be this tiny self with a history, with a past, with a name, with all the problems that come along with it. But the Upanishads say you are the whole. You are totally acceptable to yourself. You are that limitless being, which is the Swarupa, the nature of Ananda, limitless joy. But why does not that sink in? I've heard it hundreds of times. I've heard it millions of times. Sometimes maybe past life also I've been hearing this. To come to Shastra, Vedanta in this life, it is said that you have picked up the thread from past life. So I keep hearing it and I feel good hearing it. In the class, it all feels fine. I keep exposing myself to the pramana, but knowledge doesn't take place. It doesn't take place, meaning it doesn't sink in. It is taking place because you do know Tattvamasi, you are that. You know many of the Mahavakyas you've heard. So we cannot say we don't have the knowledge, okay? We do have knowledge. We are knowledgeable in Vedanta. Vedanta knowledge doesn't require a PhD. It's very simple. Tattvamasi, that's it. Aham Brahmasmi, that's it. Prajnanam Brahma, I am Atma Brahma. These are the 4 great sayings in the 4 Veda, which equate the whole with the individual. That's all Vedanta is. In fact, if I come for one class, hear that, I should have got it, and next Sunday, this whole class will be empty. But of course, it doesn't work like that. We don't become enlightened overnight unless we're Ramana Maharishis or some great beings like that. But there is a potential Ramana in everyone, okay? So we don't remain mediocre. Everybody has a potential for self-realization, self-discovery, enlightenment. So if I expose myself to the teaching, I should know I am Brahman. When the eyes are open and they see the object, they should recognize the object, but it is not possible. Then there could be some issues. So we have to examine the issues. What is the issues? So the Upanishad, is it faulty? Maybe the Shastra is itself at fault. If the means of knowledge is faulty, then it won't work. But the Upanishad has been used, it's a tried and tested methodology for thousands of years, and it has definitely benefited somewhere and someone along the line, right? That is why it's still continuing to this day. There are enlightened people we see who have used this means of knowledge and they've discovered the truth. So it is not the issue of the Shastra, it is not the issue of the scripture. Then maybe the handling is defective. Maybe the handling of the words of the Upanishad, that could be defective. The teacher may not communicate in a proper way. It may be more academic communication, or it could be, as Shankaracharya says, asampradayavit, which means somebody who is not in the lineage and does not know the methodology of communication, somebody who has just picked up an Upanishad and says, hey, I'll read it this way, let me teach it this way. That is also not going to give the right knowledge. So suppose the teacher, we find that the Shastra is okay, then the medium of communication, which is the teacher, is also good at communicating. There is sense in what the teacher says. The teacher is okay. The means of knowledge is okay. Atma is always okay. The self is always okay. No problem with the self. Then where is the problem? Nowhere is the problem. The problem is with me. That's what I don't like to hear. But yes, the problem is in our minds. We are not ready for this knowledge. That is what the acharyas say. There is a level of preparedness for this knowledge. This knowledge presupposes readiness, preparedness, which in Sanskrit is called adhikaritvam. Adhikaritvam you need for any discipline of knowledge, actually, not just this self-knowledge. You need adhikaritvam, proficiency in anything. If you're a doctor, do you not need proficiency of medicine? In knowledge of medicine? You need knowledge of the human body. You need for being a doctor. If you want to become a pilot, you need to practice flying and you need qualification to fly a plane. So in any form of knowledge, any vocation, you definitely need qualifications that are required. Now, for this self-knowledge also, the scriptures unveil some qualifications. And we're going to see that next. But before that, we'll have to see what else is required apart from God's grace. We've seen that support of a teacher, human birth, we definitely have. We know that. What else? And this else comes in Vivekacūḍāmaṇi, verse 9. So I am mixing and matching the verses because there's a beautiful combination between the two texts, and they complement each other for more clarity in the knowledge. So here Adi Shankaracharya says, hastasya bhushanam uddharedātmanātmānaṁ magnaṁ saṁsāravāridhau yogarūಢtvamāsādhya samyak darshana nishtaya. So what I'll do, I'll send these verses in sequence to the group, and I will also record. You can see how these verses are. And what does he say in this 9th verse? So we've seen God's grace important to give you, the human birth, to give you desire freedom, and to give you the support of a Mahapurusha, wise person. But in this verse, he says, self-confidence, relative self-esteem, relative self-worth is also important. This, he says, in spiritual life, there is a stress on self-effort in lifting yourself out of samsara. The guru can only do so much. The teaching can only do so much. It is up to you to do the rest. So, the internet, yeah. We have the same kind of verse in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord Krishna says the same things. He says, uddharedātmanātmānaṁ, atmanam avasadayet. Same kind of thing. But what is being said here? So self-inquiry, self-introspection is the method. And we have to re-estimate our priorities in life. We have to re-examine our value structure in life. And in that re-examination, there is a cognitive shift that is happening in the process. And this verse says, there are certain times we have to make so much effort in this field. We have to do the self-introspection. Can anybody do it for us? No, we have to be brutally honest with ourselves. Can anybody point out for us? We don't like people pointing out certain faults in us. But we know our limitations, we know our faults. So a spiritual seeker will be very objective, non-condemningly. That's why I use the word self-confidence is very important in this spiritual pursuit. I do everything gently with myself, non-condemningly, non-judgmentally, not beating myself. If I see these qualifications we're going to see, if I see there is any lack, I don't become despondent and depressed. I make efforts to change and take those qualifications, bring them into my life. So here, Bhagavan says that you have to make the effort. Uddharedātmanātmānaṁ, lift yourself up by yourself. He says the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. Nobody else can lift you up in the spiritual life. People can be help to you. The Shastra can be help to you, but it is up to you. Self-effort is very, very important. And what is the biggest enemy? Bhagavan says, because this goes along with the verse, the biggest enemy in your life is your mind. He says, Atmanam avasadayet, don't reject yourself. Atmeva atmana bandhuhu. You are your own best friend and you are your own worst enemy. Your mind can be your greatest friend, but also your worst enemy. A self-critical, self-complaining, judgmental, highly subjective mind will take you hostage. You will be hostage, taken hostage by your own mind. It will not allow you to grow. So what Adi Shankaracharya and Lord Krishna in the Gita is saying here, you have to take charge of your body, mind, sense complex, prepare it for the path of self-inquiry, using discipline, your free will, and your efforts in life. And he says, having attained the state of yoga rudha, in this 9th verse, he says, yoga rudha is a state which is a state of mind prepared for the self-inquiry into truth through continuous efforts. You lift yourself up from the sea of change, which is called samsara sagara, sea of change, and finitude, which means it's always going, always lasts for some time, then it goes, and you have become drowned in that. So you are the one who can save yourself. So one's own efforts are very crucial. This knowledge requires you to make efforts to make the instrument correct. So we saw that the text is correct, the teaching is communicated properly, then it is my job to make the mind, the knower, correct. The mind has to be, mastered. You have to gain a certain mastery over it. Your inner weaknesses have to be addressed. So this requires consistent, alert, sustained self-efforts. Then the question comes, what do I need to do? What efforts should I make? Knowledge is the result. I just told you knowledge is the result. And I also told you it is not gained by action. So you should have the same confusion as Arjuna had in the Bhagavad Gita. This is exactly the same question he had. You're telling me, oh Lord, knowledge is moksha, knowledge is the result, and it's a question of ignorance removal. Now you're telling me, lift yourself up by yourself and make all efforts in life. I am really confused, as though. So what do I need to gain moksha? I need to prepare myself. And this is where Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ, this verse is a very important verse to show you the result of knowledge. The result of action. What can actions do? So 11th verse. Chittasya shuddhaye karma natu vastupalabdhaye vastu siddhir vicharena nakinchit karma kotibhihi. Then what can actions do? Actions, and you have to add here, without clamoring for the results of action, because actions by themselves cannot produce what is said in the verse. It is actions done as nishkama, or actions done without clamoring for the results. What do they do? Here, Adi Shankaracharya says, they help to purify the mind. So you can do any action with the right attitude, action in line with dharma, with the right attitude to purify the mind. So actions have a role in spiritual life. It is not, this is what Arjuna also made the mistake. He thought running away from the battlefield and just sitting and taking to a life of bhiksha, begging for food, is going to give him that moksha and, study of the scriptures. No, actions have a role. They purify the mind. But he says very clearly, they do not by themselves contribute to understanding the reality, to discovering the reality. So he's made it very clear here. What is the role of action? Any activity I do, manasikam karma, which is mental activity, verbal activity, or kayikam karma, with the physical body activity, done with the right attitude of arpanam, karma yoga attitude, which means taking the results as they come, as from an order, and with equanimity, taking everything with equanimity, then my mind gets purified. So this is a very important verse from the Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ to show that actions do have a role, but natu vastu upalabdhaye, they don't help you to discover the vastu, consciousness. Then what? The next verse I've taken is 14th verse of Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ. Adhikarinam ashaste phala siddhir visheshatah upaya desha kaladya santyasmin sahakarinah. See, all these verses are important because they add extra meaning to Tattvabodha. See, Adi Shankaracharya, as I said, it's like holding a magnifying glass to Tattvabodha and Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ. He enhances the understanding. So here, he says, the ultimate success in spiritual life, the ultimate success of all your spiritual endeavors, your spiritual quests, depends on certain qualifications you need to imbibe in your mind. But here, what does he say? Extra things like conveniences, such as time, place, they all have some kind of role. They do have a role, but they are secondary. So time and place, they have a place, okay? They have a role in this, but they are secondary. Because many people say, you can be anywhere and you can achieve this goal. Sometimes it feels like that. If you're very strong, yes. But it is not so easy for all people. There you need to withdraw from society and from a certain place for a length of time. You cannot be in the thick and thin of London city and doing, or be in the investment banking and then pursue this knowledge. It is not going to be easy. It is not going to be easy. If you're working, as a CEO of a corporate and you're very busy in your vyavahara and everything, and, at the same time, every lunchtime you take 5-minute break. Yeah, and you're reading some gocharam, tamagocharam, then some other employee comes and they've got a problem. How is it going to work? Very difficult. So place and time, they are important. This was a very important verse for me, actually, because I had not seen this verse, clearly before. Then I see what Adi Shankaracharya is saying. And this also linked to what Gita was saying, where you need vivikta desha sevitvam arati jana samsadi. Bhagavan says that as a value, there is a reason. You have to withdraw from too much interaction with people for some time to pursue this. You need some space. You need some time to yourself. If the mind is always consciously busy, you will have never time to address unconscious issues, which Vedanta assimilation requires you to address. We are running away from addressing our unconscious issues through constantly keeping our conscious mind active. You can see that in life. Why are we always running from place to place, pillar to post, always keeping busy? Because if I stay with myself for a little while, unconscious comes up, I cannot handle it, because all the negative thinking about myself that starts coming when I'm by myself for a length of time. So I want to run away and do something. All human beings are like that. But what does he say here? You need to run away from you don't need to run away from yourself. You have to sit with yourself. Go through the pain. Whatever comes up, face it. Let it come out. It's like mental vomit, right? You're sitting with it in your stomach. Imagine holding the vomit in all the time, and you're running around trying to forget. I feel like I'm nauseous. I feel like need to vomit, but let me keep busy. I don't feel like vomiting. It is going to get worse and worse, the symptoms. So this is exactly mental vomit. You keep storing things, unconscious already, there's storage. And when you're working in the world, you keep accumulating more and more dirt for the mind, and there's never any release for it. There's never any question of it. There's never any addressing of it. And I keep running away. So sitting with yourself is addressing yourself. That is what Bhagavan says. Don't make your mind an enemy to yourself. Make it your friend. Even if it's painful, get the vomit out, because you will feel relief. And don't mentally vomit on others. That's also another prerequisite. This is a problem that also we have. We spew everything out on everybody else. It is your own. You have to manage it. What is the best thing? Shout at Bhagavan. He'll take everything. He can take everybody's vomit, and he doesn't judge. And I don't break relationship with Bhagavan. Human beings, I can break a lot of relationships if I release my unconscious on others. With the Lord, it is 100% secure relationship. You don't have to worry. You can shout at him. You can do anything at him. Just tell him everything. Get it out. Write it out. But unless you address it, you cannot progress spiritually. It is very clear. Our Gurukulas also, our acharyas discuss this widely. The unconscious that prevents us from moving in spiritual life, because I have not addressed the inner child in me. So Vedanta requires some level of psychological, well-being also. And this is what Adi Shankaracharya, can you imagine? Brilliance in those days, he's bringing it all up here in the Sanskrit verses. We are just unfolding what he says. So your time and place, they have a place, but then secondary, but sometimes it's good to get away for a length of time, like retreats, and do things like that, where you are focused in this knowledge. Now, finally, we see what are the qualifications of an adhikari, of a qualified person, spiritual seeker. Now we go back to Tattvabodha, the first verse of Tattvabodha. Sādhanacatuṣṭayasampannādhikāriṇāṁ, mokṣasādhanabhūtaṁ, tattvavivekaprakāraṁ vakṣyāmaḥ. So all of the words that he's talked about here are going to be, again, elaborated later. So he calls this qualification Sadhana Chatushtaya. Sadhana Chatushtaya. Sadhana Chatushtaya means fourfold qualifications. Sampanna means wealth. So the wealth of fourfold qualifications, endowed with the wealth of fourfold qualifications. Sampattiḥ, sampannaha. So these are qualifications, mental wealth. They're not physical wealth. This is mental wealth, wealth of the mind. First of all, let us see the word sadhana. Sadhana, is a very beautiful word. The derivation in Sanskrit is sadhyate anena iti sadhanam, that by which something else is accomplished. So why am I saying this? Because this is called sadhana chatushtaya. It is a fourfold means to accomplish something else. It is not for you to get stuck in this. This is another thing. I'm saying this because when you say means, it is a means to accomplish a goal. Many people in, again, spiritual life get stuck in these sadhanas and they keep doing sadhana until they die. So all of these sadhanas we're going to see, they are not the goal, they are the means. That has to be very clear. I should not get stuck. And, like meditation is also a sadhana. It is not the goal. We know the goal is knowledge, ignorance removal. That is clear. So all of this, yoga asanas, any kind of pranayama techniques, all of this fit in here. They're all sadhanas. They're not sadhya, which is the goal. So this is something, all these are something which you use to accomplish something else, which is the moksha. They are preparation for assimilation of knowledge. They are to make you a qualified spiritual seeker, adhikari. The adhikari will be endowed with these 4 specific qualifications. And also note, not absolutely. If you expect these qualifications to come to you absolutely, you are already setting a trap for yourself and you will definitely fail. Okay, so nothing in this world we do absolutely. It is not absolute. If I can develop a few of these, even to some measure, it is perfect. But I have to make effort to develop. So there's no pressure here. Oh my God, when you see the qualification, shama, dhamma, uparama, whole list, titiksha, I have to, forbearance is one, bear the pairs of opposites with equanimity. And suppose, I'm sitting in the freezing cold and I've got a t-shirt on. No, I'm bearing the cold. Wrong understanding of these, qualifications. So we'll have to see very carefully that we understand them properly. So adhikari is the one who is endowed with this. We add as a clause in relative measure. Okay. So you need some maturity in the subject that you are studying. And what is this subject? It is the self. So all of these words will be explained further in both texts. There's a list, you see of, in many of the websites or even in some of these manuals, you see FAQs, frequently asked questions. So in these books, we're going to see I've renamed it RAQs, rarely asked questions, but they're very important. So from frequently asked, these are rarely asked questions. And this is what the book is going to address. So in this verse, he says, vakṣyāmaḥ, we will explain. Vakṣyāmaḥ, very beautiful when he says, we will explain. He never says, I will explain. If you see many of these texts, they never use the first person I. They will always bring in the whole humility. They will bring in the whole parampara, the lineage. We will explain, because it is not limited to one person. This knowledge has been passed down, handed over, generation after generation in a lineage. So we will explain. What will they explain? Tattvavivekaprakāraṁ, the discriminative knowledge of the truth. Truth we will see, truth of oneself, the world, everything, the truth. We will explain it. And this using Viveka. Viveka is a very important word, actually. We'll see the meaning of Viveka further down. And this book, he says, is mokṣasādhanabhūtaṁ. We will explain this, all these questions regarding the reality in, as a means for moksha, for liberation. So there is a reason for their explaining. It is for moksha. And who is he going to explain to? He says, adhikariṇāṁ, for those who are eligible prepared, but is there any other criteria? Is there any other criteria apart from the fourfold qualifications? Is this knowledge only open to males? No. So I just want to make this clear. Let us make this list clear. It is not open only to males. It is also for females, because some people think this is only a male-orientated subject. No, it is open to everybody. In fact, Nachiketas in the Kathopanishad is a young boy of 8 or 10. And he was taught by the Lord of Death, Yama. He was taught Brahma Vidya. So it is open to males, it's open to females, Gargi, Maitreyi, all these are great rishis in the Veda who have gained this knowledge also. So if you go to some of our retreats, you see the majority of people are females actually. So who are eligible, male and female eligibility. Some people think, and I put this clause in because someone asked me, someone said to me once, this is all very nice and everything, this text and everything, but, we're very busy with our lives and everything. When we retire after 60, we'll go to the Gurukula and study this. So is this knowledge only for over 60s? Is this knowledge only for retirees? No. Let us be very clear. This knowledge is for people who want to know. It doesn't matter, doesn't depend on age. In fact, it is better to start studying before you retire. Because when the faculties start going, after 60, slowly everything is pakshiyate, it is declining, difficult. We have to make more effort. It is not impossible, but it is not just for retired people. Third thing, do I need a master's? Do I need a PhD? Do I need any kind of academic qualification? No, because this qualification, you may not even have any, even schooling you may not have, but you may have adhikaritvam for this knowledge, which is mumukṣutvaṁ. The desire to be free is the main prerequisite for this. If you have that desire, I want to be free, then everything will come to you. So you don't need some other qualifications. You don't need any of these things. Age doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter, academics doesn't matter, but you need some other qualifications for which you will not get a certificate, okay? Let me put a clause. You're not going to get a certificate after Tattvabodha, and you're not going to get a certificate or recognition on your resume because you have these qualifications. This is what is discussed here. He says in the Tattvabodha next verse, sādhanacatuṣṭayaṁ kim nityānityavastuvivekaḥ ihāmutrārthaphalabhogavirāgaḥ śamādiṣaṭkasampattiḥ mumukṣutvaṁ ceti. And I've linked this verse to the 17th verse of Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ. He says something very similar there. He says, Vivekino viraktasya śamādigunashālinah mumukṣureva hi brahma jignāsa yogyata. So these are exactly the same, different words are being used. He alone is considered qualified to inquire into the supreme reality. So in the Vivekacūḍāmaṇi verse, Adi Shankaracharya adds that extra, which is not in Tattvabodha. By acquiring these qualifications, you become eligible to inquire into the supreme reality. What do you need? Very basically, he has listed it in both of these verses. You need a discriminative capacity in life, which is called Viveka Shakti. You need to be able to use your intellect to see the realities of this living that we call life. Then from doing that Viveka, you need dispassion. You need to become a dispassionate person. What does that mean? Lack of passion. Lack of passion means not apathy, not indifference. We have to be careful with words. Not like, oh, I'm not bothered. I don't need to do anything. Let me just stay in bed like all day. No, that is not dispassion. Dispassion is not having interest in things that maybe you were interested in a while back because you've grown out of them. That is the important word with dispassion. It is not forced detachment. This word vairagya is often translated as detachment. Detachment sounds very forced. We are not detaching from anything here. We are attached to things. We can't help. It is dispassion. Dispassion is different to detachment. Dispassion is naturally acquiring some kind of distaste for things that you used to like in the past. When I was a 3-year-old, I loved balloons. Now as a 50-year-old, if you give me a balloon, maybe I'll say, oh, that's nice, but I don't care if it pops or it flies off. I've grown out of the desire for balloons. That is called dispassion for balloons, right? So there are many things we have grown out of, we have dispassion towards. That is the real meaning of vairagya. We will see that in more depth with the verses. So vairagya is the second quality. Then you have qualities of the mind, which is, mental quietude. These, see, very cleverly, the acharyas in the third quality, they've added another 6. They've put in 6 there, which are hidden in the third. So we'll see those 6. But why is it added in the third? Because these are all dealing with certain, preparation of this mind. So Viveka and Vairagya are dealing with your, how you deal with the external world, right? If you look at that first 2 qualities, I need Viveka when I'm dealing with the external world. Discriminative analysis is done externally. Then Vairagya is also done for external things. Vairagya is only relevant if I'm relating to the world, right? But Shama, Dhamma, and all these others that come in the third are relating to my own thinking, my own development, my own mind, mental qualities. And with all of these, what are the last one? Last one is mumukṣutvaṁ. That comes as a qualification, actually. And in fact, mumukṣutvaṁ is mentioned always at the end, but I will put mumukṣutvaṁ first on the list. The desire for liberation, desire for freedom, I will put first on the list. Why? Because this is my logic. Will any of you make efforts to gain the other qualifications without desiring a result? No one will make any efforts. Why should I practice? Why should I practice dispassion? Why should I practice viveka? What is the reason for shama, dhamma, all those other qualifications that come? Because it should come down to the fact, boil down to the fact, because I have the deep desire to be free. Mumukṣutvaṁ that is the crux of all this life. If you have that qualification, everything comes in tow, because that deep desire to be free. Free from what? Because this moksha, mumukshu, all comes from the Sanskrit root, much, to be free. And when you talk about freedom, it is always from something, right? Where I want freedom, when you say, then the person will naturally ask, from what? So from what? Mumukṣutvaṁ is the deep desire to be free from sense of sorrow, the deep desire to be free from the sense of limitation, the deep desire to be free from the constant feeling of not feeling good enough, of not feeling loved, of not feeling needed, of not feeling wanted, of not feeling acceptable. Now tell me, who does not want that? Everybody in the world wants only this, in fact, but we don't recognize it. That is the problem. We don't recognize because we go after trying to escape from this. I think I find the freedom by gaining things in life. I think I find the freedom by acquiring things. I think I find the freedom by resisting things or avoiding things. This is why this samsara, I'm stuck in this life of samsara, because I don't know how to become free. In Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ, 18th verse, he says this, and as I said, he adds one extra, which we'll see. Sādhanān yatra chatvari katitani manīṣibhihi yeshu satsveva sannishṭha yat abhavena siddhyati. He says that same qualification, there are 4-fold qualifications, but he adds that katitani manīṣibhihi, the great rishis have spoken about these qualifications. It is not someone somewhere just said, oh, you need these 4. The great rishis who have come in the lineage, who thousands of years they've been talking about this, because they themselves have tried and they have tested this and they have discovered the result. They have brought in their own experience into what their teaching is today. So they have talked about this fourfold qualifications, and they say in this verse in Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ, it is said, in the absence of these, the goal is not gained. So you can see the importance of adhikaritvam, of preparedness for the mind. Now, the absence of these, the goal is not gained. So what is the first one? We'll analyze it. He says we have just a few minutes, so I will just chant the verse, and then we will see it next week. Just 1 minute. Yeah, just getting the tune. Ado nityānityavastuvivekaḥ pariganyate. Verse 19 of Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ. ihāmutrārthaphalabhogavirāgaḥ śamādiṣaṭkasampattiḥ mumukṣutvaṁ spuṭam. Ādau nityānityavastuvivekaḥ pariganyate. ihāmutrārthaphalabhogavirāgaḥ śamādiṣaṭkasampattiḥ mumukṣutvaṁ spuṭam. So the first one we work on, he says, Ādau, firstly, what should we do? We have to be able to discriminate or perform a discriminative analysis between what is real and what is ephemeral, what is transitory, what is passing. So nitya means timeless. What is the timeless and what is going? What is going, gone? You know, this is what we say, going, gone. So this is called vivekaha. Vivekaha is the description of viveka given in these two texts, nitya, anitya vastu vivekaha. But vivekaha has to come on many levels. This is the final level of vivekaha. Before I do this vivekaha, we will see next week where do we begin? How do we do this inquiry, this discriminative analysis? There is a method that I want to talk to you next week. So we will leave it for this week. And I don't have any questions for this class, but if there are any questions from this class for next week, I will answer. So you can all send to Niru, and we will address them in the beginning of the next class. So I will send the verses that we have addressed today to the group. Please do go over, and those of you who are extra keen, you can actually memorize them, because these verses are very good to memorize, especially if you want to teach and things like that in future. So again, there's no pressure to do it, but that's why I'm sending the recordings for people who want to. It's good to remember. Okay, so Hari Om. We will meet next week, same time. Hari Om. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaः, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate, purnasya purnamadaya purnamevavashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Hari Om. Namaste. Have a Viveka-filled week ahead. Hari Om.